What in the heck is this thing? What's going on, guys? Carter with Edged Mindset. Thank you for joining me. Liking, comment, subscribing, hitting that bell notification. I absolutely need the support. Fills my heart with joy. Keeps me full of emotional juices. Ooh, that sounds gross. Fills me full of energy to keep making this content. We're taking a look at the Janisong from Spyderco, designed by Michael Janik. Michael Janik is an old school martial arts kind of person. He's been involved in the knife world for a really long time. The Yo Jumbo, all of those knives are Michael Janik designs, as well as a bevy of others. He's done like training videos on martial arts and knife fighting and things like that. You know, really big back in the 90s and early 2000s, but obviously still a proficient, prolific figure in the knife world. And this is an interesting knife with an interesting history. So Michael Janik designed this guy, which is a kind of a new take on a Balisong. So instead of it being split horizontally so that it has the two handles here that then butterfly over to close on the knife, it's split this way, and it has this insert piece right here that protects the blade and then closes it on this side, and then you open it this way. Now, what might not be coming through on the video is, and it's going to be hard, I don't have the space, is that this opens, like from a function standpoint, the exact same way a butterfly knife does. So it's in the closed position, you're in the safe direction here, which, by the way, every direction is safe on this, which is a benefit of this style of knife. You open it up, you flip it this way, just like a Balisong, turn it in your hand, flip it that way, flip it back, and now it's open. Do it the opposite, and like I said, really hard to do because I'm not, in the right direction. But it opens up the exact same way as a Balisong, just in the other plane of stuff. But like I said, what's cool is, unlike a Balisong where you have, if you're holding the wrong handle, you can get bit. That can't happen here. It only opens this way, and the blade is actually completely enclosed here. And so you can't, it stops here. Like, you can't cut yourself by doing it incorrectly, at least the opening procedure. Obviously, once you have an open blade, you can always accidentally cut yourself, but you can't cut yourself in opening it, which is kind of cool. It's a little bit of a gimmick, right? Like, is it needed? Does it provide more value for a Balisong than a Balisong has? I would argue no. Let's do some specs really quick before I get too far into this. It is a little gimmicky, but it's cool. It's a cool piece to have. Blade is 3 1/4. Overall length is 8 1/4. So terrible blade to handle ratio. If we compare it to a Paramilitary 2, you can see that here. Like, if we go pivot to pivot, this has about the same blade length, but it has quite a bit more handle to it. And the Para 2 is not a good blade to handle ratio knife to begin with. So this one makes it even worse. Here we have it next to a Slim Midi from Medford. You can see how much longer the handle is there, considerably longer. And then let's do an XM 18 3.5. I act like these are different knives. I use pretty much the same knives for comparison because I have them here. Here we go on this guy. So yeah, longer blade, shorter handle on the XM18. So terrible blade to handle ratio on this Michael Janik Janisong. Beautiful blade shape though, full flat ground, S30V, right? S30V. That was weird. I know it's S30V, but my brain didn't want to say those words because it's not a steel that I name that often nowadays, which is funny because back on my channel, 10 years ago, S30V would have been 90% of the knives that I feature on here. So yeah, G10 scales right here. This is made in Taiwan. Now, there's an interesting history with this knife. So this knife, I forget the company, but originally Michael Janik worked with a different company based in the US to make this knife. It wasn't Spyderco. They made a few different versions of this. It was pretty much, very, very similar to this knife. Not a lot of changes, very similar. But that company went out of business. He then got with Spyderco, and I think this is around 2015. He got with Spyderco to make this knife. They decided to have it made in Taiwan. They started shipping these knives into the United States, and the government said, no, You are not allowed to. This is technically a switchblade according to the US government. I don't know, make it make sense. They consider Balisong switchblades, so it is subjected to the Switchblade Act of 19 whatever, and it was illegal to import. So they slapped him with some big fines. They told him to knock it off. They quit importing them, and then I think they did like a recall, basically saying, if you bought one of these knives and we sent it to you, please send it back. I don't know how many people complied or how many people just said, no, screw that, I'm keeping it. But not a lot of these made it into the States from the first run. Now, it was still possible, of course, to buy this from people in like France, right? Countries where it was able to make it in and just have some dude in France send it to you, right? So there was some that would trickle in from little, one-off deals, person-to-person sales, things like that. But it didn't get the mass kind of distribution that the original intention was. Then, all of a sudden, this year in 2025, these popped up again, almost out of nowhere, and started coming into the country legitimately somehow from Taiwan. And now we have these. And when I did the unboxing on this, I was kind of asking if anybody knew, like, is this new old stock? Was this a knife that was made in 2015 and it's just been stuck in imports? Or, or what? Are these new production that are now just coming in? And I think the consensus is that this is a new production knife. This is not new old stock. It is new production. Now, I still don't know if the importation of these knives is a kind of a one-off thing, like there was some sort of statute of limitations where the original attempt to bring these in kind of expired and now they're allowed to, or if it's a from now on we can just import butterfly knives. I don't know, because there's huge ramifications for this. Not being able to import switchblades legally into this country, I mean, it's been a thing for decades that you are not allowed to do that. Now, I get a lot of people, sorry for all the tangents, guys. I get a lot of people, they're pointing out, well, Cobra Tech brings in switchblades or Max Ace brings in switchblades. Yeah, just because something's illegal doesn't mean people don't do it. Just how people buy a lot of things when they're in high school that's technically illegal. You can still do it, right? It's a numbers game. We don't have the resources to inspect every single crate coming into the country to see if there's switchblades in there, right? It's usually only when large companies do it and they advertise it that the government kind of busts them for it, right? So like Spyderco, right? A well-known production company is advertising these knives as being made in Taiwan. You can buy them in the United States. It caught some attention, and they busted him for it. Now, Max A sending in a couple hundred knives on the low that are switchblades, making it through. Yeah, it's going to happen, right? They're going to make it in. I don't think switchblades are the top priority for import regulations, but it still is technically illegal to do it. So hopefully that clears it up. Now, I do want to talk about a cool thing with this knife, right? So it has this carriage system. The downside to it is that it adds weight, right? They tried to reduce the weight. Did I get a weight on this? I don't think I did. They tried to reduce the weight with these holes here and stuff, but no matter what, you've got an extra piece of steel in there. 5.4 ounces, not exactly light, but not too bad, I guess. But you also have regular liners. So you have regular liners that are skeletonized, and then you have this cage, which is also steel. So it is a lot of extra steel for a 3¼ inch blade in the handle. This is pretty damn heavy. Overall length, 5.4 ounces, not terrible. But if you just think of it in terms of the blade you're getting, that's a lot of weight for a 3¼ inch blade, especially one that's not very wide. Now, you may be noticing this lock right here, which is pretty cool. So you slide this up, and now all of a sudden everything's locked together, and there's no blade play. It is like a fixed blade. It does not wiggle at all. If you unlock this, it does have some side to side, and this way, not so much. If you're holding it here, obviously, if you do this, it's going to move all over the place. But it does have side to side, but when you lock it, no wiggle whatsoever. But what's cool about the lock system is that it's locking it down here. So you notice this little groove right here. And when you toggle this switch, it actually, let me see if I can get this angle here. See this big post? See that big post right there? That's what's sliding up and down. And it's locking into this cage right here. And that's what prevents it from moving. So in order to do that, it's got a linkage system embedded inside this scale here, underneath this G10, it's got a linkage system that connects to this bar that allows you to lock it. And the same exact thing happens in the closed position. It moves up and locks into that cage and prevents it from opening. You know, what a cool way to do a lock. Usually when you have a slide lock like this, it's interacting with something in the vicinity, right? It's sliding a piece of steel up to something in here and it prevents you from pressing a button like on a stiletto, or, you know, it just prevents you from hitting an actuation switch or something like that. But it's pretty cool how this links all the way down to the bottom and locks it in place. So is this a practical knife? No. I mean, you can get more blade length for less money, lighter weight, all of those things. It is kind of goofy looking with this little tiny blade. And the reason it's like that is because you've got this multi-cage system. You can see how much space is being taken up with the lock and this interior cage right there. And then the blade has to fit within that. So really, I mean, all of this is just extra handle right there. But it's still a cool piece to have, especially if these don't continue coming into the country. Really glad I picked one of these up. I think I got it from National Knives. I think 206 or something. They had them on sale. So pretty cool. I'm glad I have it. It's a nice piece of history with a story. Michael Janik, of course, is an important figure in the knife world. And it's just kind of a cool mechanism. What do you guys think? Is this something you would ever actually kind of carry around and use? I mean, the blade itself, even though it's kind of small for the weight and the handle, is a very utilitarian style blade. Full flat ground. You know, it's not really slicey. Pretty thick blade stock, but definitely a cutter if you want it to be. And of course, with this handle design, it is completely safe. Even if you don't lock it, like there's no way for this lock to fail because, I mean, I guess it could fail. You could break the pivot or something, but it's not going to slip off because your hand is actually keeping it completely locked, just like a Balisong, a traditional Balisong would. So comment down below. What do you think of the Janisong? Is it cool? Is it a gimmick? Is it something you would ever use? I want to know. Talk to you guys later.